Hello, welcome to the Beliefs Bazaar. My name is Alex. In this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about the mandate that the administration keeps talking about whenever they're challenged on policy. So I thought it'd be useful to discuss what the definition of mandate is. The first definition is an official order or commission to do something. So that would, potentially be like an executive order or any kind of policy from leadership. I think in the context of these conversations, though, the second definition is what they're referring to, which is the authority to carry out a policy or course of action regarded as given by the electorate to a candidate or a party that is victorious in an election. So, yes, this administration did indeed win the election. Whether or not that gives them across the board, whether or not all their policies are what people would support, they keep hiding behind this idea that they were mandated to do all the things that they said they would. And I realized during the campaign leading up to the election, they did make a bunch of statements and promises, and now they're carrying out those promises in a general, similar way to how they described in the campaign. Now, whether or not those are good ideas or, whether or not they're adhering to their campaign promises is not as relevant for this topic or for this video. In this video, I just want to kind of go over how much of a mandate do they actually have? How much of a win and how much support did they actually have in the entire population of the United States? So, I know there's a lot of polling data that says, 50% support or whatever. So those are just people who participated in the polls. So I would, generally say that people that participate in polls may be from the electoral body. So those are people that voted in the election are probably more likely to participate in these political polls than people who didn't. So that's just something to consider. But I did want to definitely discuss here. Let's see here. All right. So how much of a win was this? So here is the a little graphic here that shows, the year of the election and then some statistics about, the first one is voting age population. But for this, the relevant data is the voting eligible population. So in 2024, there was 244,666,890 eligible voters. And so those are people that could vote should they choose to. Now, of the people that chose to vote, sorry, I guess this graphic here actually does say the turnout. So of the 244 million, 156 million people showed up for the vote. So that's a little bit more than half. As says here, that's 59%. So about 60% of people that could vote did. So of that 60%, this is the election results. Donald Trump won with 49.8% of the popular vote, meaning 77,302,580 votes. Kamala Harris lost with 48.3% of the popular vote. That is 75,017,613 votes. As you can probably see from these numbers here, Donald Trump won with 49.8% of the voters, and Kamala lost to 48.3% of the voters. So if you can do the math on that, Donald Trump won with a spread of 1.5%. So only 1.5% more people, eligible voters, voted for Donald Trump. If you consider those numbers in, compared with the total number of voters that are eligible to vote, that's less than 1%. It's 0.94% more voters. So they definitely won. There is a victory there, but are we really going to say that this was such an overwhelming mandate for them to do a thing with 1.5% spread? You might not say so in other contexts, but that's Right. So here we go. This is some numbers I put together. So, if you consider the eligible voters, Donald Trump won with 32% of the eligible voting population, and Kamala Harris lost with 31%. So that's less than a 1% spread of a win there. So I guess my point with this is that 30% of the American population voted for a person that's now affecting everybody in the country. Of course, this is, as is the case with any election, but, this overwhelming support they claim to have is only 30% of the United States population. So 30% of the United States population, of the voting eligible population, voted for this person who is now dramatically affecting the entirety of the population, plus worldwide economics and national, international relations. So I guess, again, my whole point with this video is just to point out that that win isn't as much as they would like to say it is. And also you've got, at least another 30%, almost by 0.1%, almost as many people saying they don't want that. So what is it? Are we going off a mandate from 0.1% of the population here? The difference? That seems to be the case. So that is not to say that they lost the election. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of that here, but I just want to say that that is not as much of an overwhelming majority as they would have you believe. And there's a lot of people that didn't vote that aren't part of those statistics that definitely feel one way or another about it now. And we don't have good data on that, so I'm not going to speculate on which way those people would vote. But I can tell you that they're all being affected by this just as much as if they'd voted for Donald Trump. So that is to say negatively. And you can dispute that as well, but the numbers and the data show that the win was not as much as they would have you believe. And yeah. And I'll talk in some other videos about the quality of, it's maybe the wrong word to say it, but the, who are all these voters? Who is this 30% that voted for Donald Trump, even in light of the things he was saying? If you would actually been able to look into those things and had an unbiased perception of the data you're looking at, you might say that these things that he's campaigning on will be bad for society. And, for all those people that are saying he's just carrying out the mandate that we gave him, well, those 30% don't understand what that was for. They did not understand what they were voting for. And now many of them are regretting it and saying, this isn't what I voted for. But this is absolutely what you voted for. You voted for this because you did not understand the things that they were talking about on the campaign, nor the ramifications of those actions. So, I'm not saying that everyone should have voted Democrat, because that's a larger argument to be had, and, a more nuanced understanding of what are all the factors that cause anyone to vote in any direction. That's a much deeper topic that I won't talk about today. I just want to spend a few minutes pointing out the fact that this was not the overwhelming victory that they'd like to say it is, and their response of we have a mandate to do this is only as useful as it is to say that the people that supported Trump during the election will probably support the things that he campaigned on that he's actually doing. Now, does that mean that he is given carte blanche to do whatever the fuck he wants? I don't think so. I don't think that, I don't think that if Kamala had won, those that voted for her would say that she can do whatever she wants. That's not why we vote for people. We don't vote for them to get into office. And even if they carry out some campaign things that they said they would, that doesn't allow them to just rewrite the way the government works or whatever. And I'd also like to point out that lastly here that, if Kamala had won, and then she started doing similar things to Trump, I don't think people that voted for Kamala would be happy about it. In fact, I know they wouldn't, because we're not just latched on to a personality. We're we're more focused on the goals and values that we have. And those goals and values are transcend candidacy, right? If a candidate was campaigning on the values that we hold and then able to execute them, it wouldn't matter what party they're from. And I think that's the opinion that most progressives will have. And, you know, it may seem that we only support Democratic candidates because in recent elections, that's who we end up voting for. But that's only because of the context of who the opposition party is and what their values are. So I guess that's all I really have to say about it. And I hope everyone's doing all right out there. Thanks for watching.